Okay, I thought I'd try something a little different tonight. I printed off some of the discussion questions that we have at the end. I'll get Max to pass these out. I only printed about 8 or so. So if you think you might answer a question at the end, raise your hand. Max will give it to you. So it's kind of like a little cheat sheet for you. So Max, if you still have some left over, just hand it out to someone who's answered a question in the past. So. Okay, we are looking at Ephesians chapter 6 tonight, and the topic is showing grace at home and in the workplace. So it's some people might divide that into two different things, but there is some similarity between the two different groups. My background is going to be a little bit different from a lot of you. I started working virtual from home about 30 years ago, so I don't have the face-to-face interaction with coworkers that a lot of you may have. Also, we homeschooled for over 20 years, so our home environment was probably different from a lot of people. So we were all together in one house all the time. So it was kind of like a modern day little house on the prairie type thing. So it's a bit different. I'll also be referencing some stuff from Focus on the Family. Back in the 80s when we were at ACU, James Dobson had some series of videos on marriage and family relations, and so that was kind of an influence for me. Also about that time, there was other video series done by Landon Saunders, and I think it was Heartlight or Heartbeat or something like that. But so those were the two video series that were popular back in the 80s. And at the time, Landon Saunders was single, and so as a freshman at college, I wrote to him and said, you know, what should I do about marriage? Should I try to find a wife or should I try to be single? And he wrote back and said, don't worry about it. If God wants you to marry someone, he'll put someone in your life. And I just read today that Landon Saunders passed away yesterday, so it's a big loss there. But so that's just a little bit to get in there. So tonight we are looking at, there we go, grace at home and in the workplace, and then there's 2 more lessons after this. Here's a verse from Exodus chapter 20 that will be referenced in Ephesians 6. Honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land of the Lord your God is giving you. Who remembers which one of the 10 commandments this is? Let's see. Okay. All right. Got some that are right. Number 5. How many remember the 10 fingers exercise? We'll go through it again. God is number 1. This is I, no idols. This is talking, do not take God's name in vain. This is a W for worship, when to worship. Honor, remember the Sabbath, keep it holy. And then the baby finger, this is number 5, honor your father and mother. So that's what we're on tonight. And then number 6, on the other hand, you've got a knife, do not kill. And then there's the ring finger, do not commit adultery. And then you've got this action, do not steal. This is taking money from someone's pocket. And then you've got this, do not lie. And then the last one is a C or a J. do not covet, do not be jealous. So those are the 10 commandments. And you remember it's in chapter 20 because Exodus is the second book of the Old Testament, and 2 times 10 is 20. So there you go. Okay, so Paul is going to be referring to this verse. When I was doing the research on this, I came across this verse, and I thought it was could be humorous in the right light. How many of y'all have seen kids kind of roll their eyes when their parents tell them something? If your kids do that, you can quote this verse to them. The eye that mocks a father, that scorns obedience to a mother, will be pecked out by the ravens of the valley and eaten by the vultures. So you can get your kid to read that to you if they roll their eyes at you. Okay. Okay, Ephesians 6, we're going to divide it up into 2 parts. Verses 1 through 4. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. Okay, many of you know that Ephesians and Colossians are 2 similar books that Paul wrote. In Colossians, there's kind of the repeating of this a little bit with a little bit of twist. Colossians 3:20 through 21, Paul wrote, "Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged." Okay. So as parents, I think we get kind of a better feeling of God's love for us. If you think about the first time that you held your child, those of you that are parents, you know, when the nurse put that baby in your hands, what were you thinking of? You know, did you think of joy, amazement, confusion? Maybe you thought, how am I going to afford college for this kid? You know, there's different things that might have popped into your mind. One thing that I thought of was, you know, that baby is like a miracle. You know, something microscopic developed into this baby, and then it's going to grow up, and I won't be able to hold it much longer. And, you know, pretty soon the kids grow up and you kind of have the feeling to give them a hug or something, to put them on your lap, but, you know, they're too big for it and it causes the chair to break. But that's the way kids are. Okay, so focus on the family. Here's grace, how to show grace to your children. And it's an acronym there. You see gratitude, resist, adjust, communicate, express. Begin with gratitude. When upset, stop and recognize how grateful and blessed you are for your family. Resist the emotions. Make a choice to resist being negative. Adjust your thinking. Realize that my child's annoying actions are likely unintentional. Rather, it's their way of communicating a need. Now, with our son, when he was a toddler, if he started fussing and crying and things like that, we thought, oh, it's time for him to go to bed. That was his signal for us. Communicate kindly. Sometimes it helps to start with a question. What can I do for you? How can I help? Or offer an honest response. I know this is hard on all of us. Express genuine appreciation. This becomes the undeserved gift. You might be able to make a good argument for dishing out some criticism, but when you turn that urge around and offer an encouraging word instead, most often that response calms the other person down. So those are some suggestions from Focus on the Family. And if all that fails, there's always the belt. So, okay. I forgot something on that. Also, from Focus on the Family, human beings have an amazing capacity to feel and express deep passion. The degree to which we love the other people and feel deep passion for them is the same degree to which we may grow angry with them. So if you think about that, the people that make you the angriest are the people that you love the most. Sometimes the best way to show grace to your kids is to leave them for a while and pray. It may also be good to have some physical way of releasing anger or frustration. So do something physical like exercising or jogging or punching a door or something, I don't know. The way we respect our parents says a lot about how we show respect to God. Honoring our father and mother teaches us how to honor our Heavenly Father better. Okay, parenting with grace. These are some things kind of collected together and summarized from different sources. Number one, study the Bible with your child. Don't rely on Bible class teachers to do all the training. Number two, forgive your kids when they mess up. Show them they are still loved, even when they have to pay the consequences of their action. There, I think about David when he had the census taken. God forgave him, but he still had to take the consequences of that action. Number three, ask your children for forgiveness when you overreact. Number four, practice self-discipline. Pray before reacting. Number five, practice discipline, not punishment. Don't retaliate. So it's good to count to 10 before doing anything. Encourage your children to ask questions and make time to answer them, especially true for kids in public schools. So if they come home with questions about what the teacher said, it's probably not as much problem here, but other places be talking about evolution and things that are woke, considered woke nowadays. Number seven, teach your children to obey out of love, not out of fear. Number eight, focus on correcting character traits that are wrong, not different. Each kid is unique. Back in Fort Worth, there was a little kid that liked to dress up like a superhero every time he came to church. And, it's kind of different, but, his parents let him do that. They were, so that's kind of letting them be themselves. It wasn't wrong. Number nine, we are children of God, imitate him, and that's kind of taken from Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1. I've heard Nathan refer to Tim Keller. I've got a quote from Tim Keller. I'm not really sure who he is. It's respect for your parents that is the basis for every kind of respect and every other kind of authority. Honoring our father and mother teaches us that God has placed people in authority over us. Honoring them also teaches us how to respect that authority and be respected by those we have authority over. Okay, so that's about showing grace to kids. Now this is showing grace to parents. Again, from Focus on the Family. Number one, tell them that you love them. Number two, show appreciation. Number three, do a chore for your parents. 4, show love to your siblings. 5, plan a family game night or adventure. Number 6, take an interest in their hobbies. 7, listen to their stories. 8, share your stories with them. 9, ask them for their opinion. 10, tell the truth. 11, don't talk back. 12, speak well of your parents. 13, ask about their day. 14, organize a family Bible study. 15, research your genealogy. Number 16, compliment your parents. Number 17, serve others with them. Number 18, be aware of your reactions. 19, be teachable. Number 20, plan time with your parents. And a lot of these are geared towards teenagers or preteens, but I think really we can use this at any stage of our life. Let's see. Okay, now let's jump over to showing grace at the workplace. To start with, this is a verse from when Jesus washed his disciples' feet, Luke 22, verses 26 through 27. The greatest among you should be like the youngest, and the one who rules like the one who serves. For who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who is at the table? But I am among you as one who serves. So this is at the last meal. Jesus just washed his disciples' feet, and there was an argument between some of his disciples about who was the greatest. And then Jesus told them this. A few years ago, I was in a business management class, and one of the management styles talked about was the inverted pyramid style, servant leadership. And I know Jim might have a better understanding of this than I do. Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, the idea is a servant leadership style. And when I first heard about this, I was thinking, this is straight from the gospel. You know, this is what Jesus was teaching. But if you look at it, at the very top, you see customers and clients. That is the target of the business. So they are the ultimate beneficiaries of an organization's efforts. Below them, you have the frontline workers who serve the customers or clients, and they provide direct service affecting customer-client satisfaction. And below them are their managers that provide them support. They help the frontline workers do their jobs and solve problems. And then below that, at the very bottom, you have the executives that keep the mission and strategies clear and also support the managers. So it's kind of a upside-down approach to leadership. I've got some information from George Manning, who is a professor at Northern Kentucky University. He says, servant leadership is a calling to serve. This calling begins with a feeling deep down inside that no one cares about people. This calling begins with a feeling deep down inside that one cares about people and wants to help others. Then conscious choice causes one to aspire to lead. The great leader is a servant first, and that is the secret of his or her greatness. The servant leader is different from the individual who is motivated by selfish goals. Winston Churchill captured the spirit of servant leadership when he said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. What is the use of living if not to strive for noble causes and to make this muddled world a better place for those who live in it after we are gone?" People do not trust the self-server whose primary thoughts are for personal gain. Trust is given to the leader who works for common good and has the interest of others at heart. The servant leader is the one people will choose to follow, the one with whom they will prefer to work. So that's probably the ideal form of leadership or management in the workplace. Ephesians 6, verses 5 through 9, is addressed to slaves and slave owners. It goes, slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear, with a sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. Obey them not only to win their favor when their eye is on you, but as slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from your heart. Serve wholeheartedly, as if you were serving the Lord, not men. Because you know that the Lord will reward everyone for whatever good he has done, for whatever good he does, whether he is a slave or free. And masters, treat your slaves in the same way. Do not threaten them, since you know that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no favoritism with him. So what I would like to do, since slaves and slave owners is no longer an item, I'd like to change the wording a little bit for it to apply better to us. So put this in the context of working. Employees, obey your earthly bosses with respect and fear, and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. Obey them not only to win their favor when their eye is on you, but like employees of Christ, doing the will of God from your heart. Work wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not men, because you know that the Lord will reward everyone for whatever good he does, whether he is employed or not. And bosses, treat your employees in the same way. Do not threaten them, since you know that he who is both their higher up and yours is in heaven, and there is no favoritism with him. So I hope you'll forgive me for changing the scripture, but I think this would apply more for us in the context of how we should be in the work environment. So as employees, do we ever perform less than 100%? There's a temptation to, kind of come in late, leave early, take long lunches, something like that. One thing in my past, I started off with a major computer company back in the 80s, worked for them about 23 years and was laid off. And during that time, I got a contracting job with the Navy. And I never had a government job before. And I was encouraged to look busy, even though I wasn't. And that just kind of went against my grain. I was always trained to work, be worth the money that I paid. So I started writing programs to make the group more efficient. And so that's just part of my nature. I guess that might be typical for a lot of government jobs to just kind of do nothing, but that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And then, so I was only there a year until I found another tech company to work with. But the current company I work with gives me flexibility of time, so I can, like last year, I could work in the morning and then work around the house in the afternoon and then do some more work in the evening. So there's that type of thing. So, the way we approach work is a form of grace to others, I think. If we, let's look at this verse in Colossians 3:23-24. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for men, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is not the Lord Christ, is it? It is the Lord Christ you are serving. So that's the kind of attitude we should have at work, as far as doing our best, giving it 100%. And that is a form of grace, both to our employers, our coworkers, those that work under us. If we put in the best that we can, that helps everyone out, and it helps them to feel better for us, or it shows them integrity on our part. Okay. This is a quote taken from Forbes Human Resources. Leading with grace. I found this kind of interesting. So since this is a business or a company that deals with businesses, and they are talking about grace in their HR stuff. This is directed towards their leadership, management. Leading with grace is a benefit to our organizations. When people feel psychologically safe, valued, and cared for, both at work and in their lives, they will bring their best selves forward and give you their discretionary effort. But make no mistake, grace is an inside job. It's our role as leaders to model it, invest in it, and commit to it. Forbes goes on and says, grace is showing kindness when someone is struggling. When we check in with our employees, it shouldn't be just a mindless check-in. You might say things like, what do you need? How can I support you? How is your life? When you personalize check-ins with your employees, you are choosing grace. When we share information freely and transparently, sharing our own challenges and things we are struggling with, or saying, I don't know the answer to that, but it's a good question, or here is what I do know. We become an agent of comfort for our people, creating confidence amid the chaos. When you are honest and vulnerable, you are choosing grace. When we are flexible and deal with interruptions with understanding and even laughter, we are conveying no apologies necessary. Let's roll with it. When you are accepting of unexpected circumstances, you are choosing grace. I recognize that in high-performance workplaces and cultures, we might worry that allowing for grace in these times may suggest accepting substandard performance, but I would suggest that we frame it differently. This isn't a permanent acceptance of lowering standards or expectations. This is having a genuine conversation that creates grace. So, I thought that was kind of inspirational there. One thing I forgot to mention about the two different passages in Ephesians 6. The first part talks about the parent-child relationship, and it talks about how parents treat their children and how children treat their parents. The second section I thought was similar because it talks about the master-slave relationship, or the employee-employer relationship, how one treats the other. So it's kind of a dual thing that we see Paul doing there. Okay, Matthew 5:16, this is the Sermon on the Mount. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. So by seeing how we function in the workplace will be a testament to those that we work with. What does it mean to let your light shine? Does this mean giving grace to those that we come in contact with? Okay. This is a picture of Mark Edge. He is my brother's brother-in-law. But he teaches ethics to businesses, and kind of helps them to deal with their employees and he's a former missionary to either Chile or Argentina. I don't remember, but he's been a preacher in Churches of Christ. But these are the 7 elements that you should know. Creating a workplace culture fostering stability and growth is tougher than ever. Employees' priorities, work ethic, and capabilities have shifted, leaving many business owners unable to motivate their workforce and grow the business. These 7 elements are what you need to know to regain control of your company's future. So number 1, unprepared for adulthood. The family, the church, and the school did not prepare Americans for adulthood as they once did. Number 2, ill-equipped for the workforce. Younger employees are arriving ill-equipped to the workforce. Texas Child Protective Services teach new foster parents that many children, especially foster children, are growing up out of sync emotionally, mentally, and physically. A young employee may join the workforce at age 25. Emotionally, he may be 16, yet in life experiences, he could be the equivalent of age 35 because he has seen so much more in his childhood than is developmentally appropriate. Number 3, workplace is the new hub for shaping lives. Most adults between the age of 20 and 65 will spend the majority of their waking hours in the workplace. Because of elements 1 through 3 above, the workplace is the new hub for shaping American lives, educating people and helping them grow up. So it's kind of a scary thing to me. Number 4, create a workplace culture. You can address the first 3 elements by addressing a workplace culture that cares, cultivates, and competes. Number 5, put your employees first. Create a culture that cares for your people. In 2017, Southwest Airlines completed its 45th year of making a profit. How? Early on, they cultivated this philosophy. You put your employees first. If your employees are treated right, they will treat your customers right. Your customers will come back, and that's what makes your shareholders happy. Number 6, nurture, enhance. Create a culture that cultivates your people. Business guru Tom Peters has written for decades about management and leadership. Walk into any Walmart, and there is a good chance you'll find one of his famous quotes regarding the importance of cultivating your people as human beings on a poster. Management is about arranging and telling. Leadership is about nurturing and enhancing. And then number 7, compete well in the free market. And that's the business aspect that he goes on to talk about. Okay, there is a bunch we could talk about as far as parenting and work, but I just wanted to leave time for discussion questions. So, I've learned from past weeks, when answering yes or no, follow up with an explanation. Okay, so, does someone have a question? Yes, sir. Okay. Okay.
Leaving corporate America 3 years ago, and now being stupid enough to go back.
Okay, Max is coming over with the mic, so everyone can hear.
You know, leaving corporate America when I did, and now going back, I can tell you from a senior leadership position where I was, the attitude was churn and burn. We hired these kids that were unprepared. They didn't care. Companies don't care. I agree with your business triangle. That's the way it should be. That's not the way it is in most cases. It's pushed down from the top. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is, even in where I work today. It's how fast can we drive it? How fast can we change it? For every 5 people that they hire, they fire 10. Or 10 walk out. and it's a churn and burn society. We're hiring kids that are not prepared. They're not mature enough to even hold down a job. We haven't trained them. They're not trained at home, and that's a society problem. But you know, I've sat here and listened to this. I agree with some of it. I'd say probably 70% of it, but the other, it's hard for me to. I live it every day, and I hate to say it doesn't work that way. We live in Searcy, Arkansas. It's a great place to live, and I hate to use what I'm fixing to say, but it is a sheltered place. Trust me. Mm-hmm. It is not this way outside of this world. Go to Atlanta, go to Nashville, go to Dallas, go to LA, go to New York. It's not this way, and it is a rough environment. And if you don't stand up for yourself, you're going to get run over. And you know, we've got kids that can't do this. We've got adults. We've got 30 and 40-year-olds that can't do half of the stuff on that list right there.
Yeah, number 3 is the one that scares me the most. There's a lot of companies that I would not want my children to work at because I would be afraid of the influence they'd have on them. The company I work for currently has ethics that I differ with, and I've talked to my manager about that. You know, there's some things I haven't signed off on because I disagree with it. So
I agree. They believe in situational ethics, and what's good right now might not be good next week. You know, I'm in one of those conversations right now that I made a whole lot of people irritated today because I called them out on things, and they didn't like it.
yeah, and it takes courage to do that, you know, to stand up for what we believe in.
It just takes stupidity in today's market.
Okay, anyone else have comments on previous slides before we go to discussion questions? Okay, first question. Is it possible to protect your children too much? Does grace mean removing all temptation? One reason we moved to Searcy was because it is a protected environment. We enjoy that feature. Albert?
Is it possible to protect, in my context, is it possible to overprotect your children? The answer is yes. And does grace means removing all temptation? No. In the example of Job, God did not remove all temptations, and He allows Job to go through the process. So similarly in our family, in our lives, as parents, we do not want our children to suffer, that's for sure. We want them to get into trouble. But if we don't allow them to experience certain things, like, for example, if we keep telling them that don't touch the fire, don't play with fire, and they insist they want to, let them play. And they get burned once, they will understand what is the meaning of being burnt. Because the feeling of being burned or being hit by something is something you need to experience. You got to fall. I always tell people, when you were born, do you born straight away you come out and walk and punch like Muhammad Ali? You don't, right? You don't punch like Muhammad Ali. You have to go through the process of being punched at, being hurt, and then you understand what is the meaning of all this that your parent is trying to tell you. So, but there are many parents who overprotect their children to the point that their children become effeminate, afraid to do this, afraid to do that.
Yeah.
And being a person who was born in those days where we undergo what we call a school of hard knocks, yeah, I will not encourage overprotection of children. And grace does not mean that you remove everything from them. And when you remove everything, you give them everything, they become dependent on the crutches. So when time comes when you're not around to protect them, they do not know what to do. So we cannot allow that. That is my opinion.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Thank you, Albert.
I struggle a little bit with the first part of that first section of that question, because I think as a parent with children still at home, teenage daughters growing up in this culture and society, I have realized that my level of protection for our daughters has been different based on their age. We have a daughter that has autism, and she's the oldest, and we have to be an advocate for her because her lack of ability to process information and to understand, she would be taken advantage of very easily. So you can't just make a blanket statement, because I think it's going to vary from child to child and their age and what they can and cannot do. Now, I don't want to be the parent that makes all of the decisions for them, because I want them to learn how to grow and deal and critically think through difficult situations, but I'm never going to throw them to the wolves. So I don't know. It's kind of a tricky question.
Okay, thanks, Karen. I think I saw someone thinking about raising their hands. Oh,
I agree with her. There's different situations with different children, so it's hard to answer it for everybody one way. But I think that you've got to let your children learn and have consequences sometimes, and not always pick up the pieces for them. You want to protect them, but sometimes always picking up the pieces for them is not protecting them.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think sometimes the hardest thing to do is to let your kids fail, to let them get injured. But they learn that way. And if we always block everything, they will not know how to handle failure and danger in the future. As homeschoolers, that was one big thing for us, was to protect our kids. We moved away from Ohio to the Bible Belt to help protect our kids. So, okay. Number 2, have you ever stopped being a parent or stopped being your parent's child? Okay. Remember, every yes or no follows with an explanation. So,
I stopped one Sunday after church. We went to Viva and our youngest, well, our only child at the time, got into the fountain, and I acted like I didn't know who he was.
I thought my wife had him, and she thought I had him, and all of a sudden there's all this commotion, and I paid the ticket and went on outside.
okay. All right. Well, I think I'll say my opinion, and you can disagree with me if you want to. But I think we're always a parent to our children, no matter how old we get, how old they get. We're always worried about them. And I think we're always think of our parents as someone we like to enjoy comfort with. My parents have passed, but I have warm feelings towards them and looking forward to being with them again someday. Anyone else have a comment on that? Max does.
So our roles can change a bit, because as my father got older, we had to kind of keep him from being scammed, and this we had to start taking care of him in certain ways, taking him to appointments and stuff. And so, where he used to give us rides to places, we were giving him rides now. So the roles do change a bit, but you're still the child and he's still your parent. If he tells you to do something, you still listen and respect him and honor them.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. Can you share more grace as a parent or as a grandparent? So I know we have a lot of grandparents in here. So we've got 2 minutes. I'll kind of want to jump over this and get to work stuff. I think the grace differs between the two. So I think grandparents are allowed to spoil the kids, whereas parents have to be the discipline. Can you continue to honor your parents after they die? And I think that's what funerals are, is the way to honor your parents, and what you put on the tombstone, and how you talk about them to your children and other friends. That's a way to honor them. Now, for work, is there fear in talking about religion at work other than Harding? You probably don't have that fear if you work at Harding, but for those of us in the secular job force, I'll give you a personal, wait, Mickey has something, okay.
Yeah, I, like you, had the opportunity to work from home, not at home, but from home. After my first year, I'm a chemical engineer, worked for one of the largest chemical companies in the country. And after my first year of training, I actually took a job where I worked from my home and traveled and visited customers virtually every day. And so I learned how to enjoy an opportunity to have a schedule that I could make, which gave me an opportunity to be with my kids when I needed to be and been involved in their activities. But in working from home, I, like you, didn't have the issue of being at work and around the people that I worked with all the time, but rather with customers. And so my attitude was to treat them with the respect that they needed, and also to help them solve problems using our chemicals. So I had a lot of opportunities to develop trust and always was honest with all the customers that I had. And after 35 years serving a lot of these customers, when we sold the business and introduced the new owners of the company, they told us that you're the only people that ever did everything that you said you would do. And so you build a reputation with them. And because of that, I had an opportunity, the way I developed a customer, we installed equipment on their property to store our product. And so we would go into the property during construction, and I developed a relationship with the people there such that when I went to visit, I didn't have to make an appointment. I could drive in and park next to our tank and go in as if I were an employee and talk to whoever I wanted to. Because of that, I spent a lot of time in the back of their businesses working with day-to-day workers, laborers, and I developed the ability to get an opportunity to talk to them about religion. And so oftentimes I might spend 2 or 3 hours talking to a group of their employees about the Bible. Mm-hmm. And so it's really amazing what you can teach when you do that. So it can be done, and makes a real difference when you have an opportunity to do that. And when you get a little bit comfortable with it, you really feel good about the influence you can have. Yeah. And so it's important, I think, that we work on developing, because I didn't do that when I was younger, but really work on developing a skill to be able to ask questions that might lead to discussions like that.
Yeah, I think it's scary to start off talking about it, but afterwards you feel good about doing it. So it's very rewarding. So there's the last question. We'll go ahead and close in prayer. Next week is Thanksgiving singing. So, Father, we thank you for the families that you've blessed us with. Thank you for those of us who are parents for our children. Thank you for the parents that we have. Help us to look for opportunities to share your grace with our family members, with our coworkers, for all that we come in contact with, not to fear talking about you you, your love, and your word to those that we have relations with. Thank you for this church family that we come together and open your word together and grow closer to you and to each other. All this we pray in your son's name. Amen.